Alicia, take it away.
Good morning, folks. And well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And welcome to this presentation. I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you for joining. So I'm Alicia McLean, and this is the Facilitation, Diversity, and Inclusion track. The mission of this track is to raise awareness about how important facilitation is as a vital competency for leaders. And in our session today, you'll hear from Patrick Heller. He's a seasoned Agilist and has coached teams across a variety of industries and organizations. The title of his talk is Building Great Teams Through Acceptance and Respect. So I want you to sit back, grab a pen and paper, and get ready to get some great tips from Patrick. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Yeah, today I want to talk about building great teams through a focus on acceptance and respect. I will tell you about a wonderful real-life example of how that works. And in the meantime, I will address some of the key aspects you should keep in mind when building a team based on acceptance and respect. So, in modern agile environments, building trust is seen as the go-to solution to create well-functioning teams. However, psychological research about reference groups shows that building teams based on acceptance and respect is actually the way to go. So a reference group is the group of people that you are currently part of. So at your sports club, it might be your sports team. At home, it's your family. And at work, it might be a scrum team, for instance. So knowing this about acceptance and respect, as a coach, it's important for you to have the proper tools to create a safe space for your team members to be able to feel accepted for who and what they are and respected for what they bring to the team.
So Patrick, tell us a little bit more about this safe space. What do you mean about that?
So creating a safe space means creating an environment where there's psychological safety for everyone. So no hostility, no pushy agenda, no hierarchy, no double agenda, just a team and their feelings and nothing else. Okay. Okay, I will show you a few slides now to make a few things a little bit more clear. So acceptance and respect, those are the basis for feeling self-esteem when you're part of a group. So you might think of self-esteem as something that you feel about yourself, but research has shown that self-esteem is actually what you think other people feel about you. So if you feel accepted and you feel respected, that's where you get your self-esteem from. And if you feel self-esteem, then your confidence goes up. And when your confidence goes up, so does your performance. And when your individual performance goes up, so does the team performance. So actually, there's no better starting point than acceptance and respect. One thing leads to the other, right? Acceptance and respect to self-esteem, from self-esteem to confidence, from confidence to individual performance, and from individual performance to team performance. Okay. Hope that clears things up a bit. I will now share you a heartwarming story about a so-called team appreciation session that I did with the most diverse team that I've ever coached, and how that actually turned into a great team building session like none before, and one that I will never forget for the rest of my life. So I was an agile coach at a large organization, and I was mainly coaching management teams, but I was also the scrum master for one of the scrum teams. And the team was a very pleasant team to work with. They were very good at what they did. They delivered a lot of value for the organization, and they delivered what they promised and often more. They were kind of the star team for the organization. An important aspect of this team was its diversity. There was, for instance, a fairly young trans woman on the team. There was a refugee from Africa. There was an autistic man of around 60. There was an 18-year-old intern. There was a bright man who struggled a lot with weight problems, an inexperienced female product owner, etc. It was a really diverse team. And around the end of the year, like where we're at right now. I was asked, together with another Scrum Master by management, to come up with an alternative for the traditional end of the year performance review with a manager. They were asking for something more in line with how an agile team works. And we came up with a format that we call the team appreciation session. And I will again share a few slides to make that more clear. So the team appreciation session, it has an agenda. So you have to think of this session taking about half a day. And well, first there's a short introduction about what we're going to do. And then everyone has a canvas. And that looks like this. So you have an empty canvas with tips and tops on it. And you're going to put your sticky notes on there as a team member. The tops are the things that you feel are your strengths, things that you're good at. And the tips are the things that you feel need improvement. Right? So you can put as many sticky notes on there as you like, or as few as you like. It's your canvas. You can do with it what you please. After everyone's done with preparing their own canvas, everyone does a pitch. So everyone's going to explain to the other team members what they wrote down on their canvas, why they wrote it. After everyone's done with that, everybody gets the opportunity to write tips and tops for every other team member. So you're going to put sticky notes on every canvas of every other team member. And after that, you get some time to reflect on your own canvas. You go back to your own canvas and you look at what other people wrote for you, what tips and tops, and maybe some questions you have. Maybe not everything is 100% clear for you. And then we enter the most important part of the session, and that's a discussion. So everyone's canvas is discussed with the whole team. And well, I wrote down 10 minutes, but it could be more. And you get a chance to clarify things. You can ask questions, give feedback. The basic idea is that at the end of this discussion, the owner of the canvas has enough input to put together a personal development plan for the coming months. So that's the basic concept. I knew beforehand that the team members would probably feel a little bit hesitant to be completely open about their own tips and tops. So with the pitches, I went first. This was both scary and important. Scary because it meant I had to open up about my own shortcomings. That felt very vulnerable. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only coach suffering from the imposter syndrome every now and then. So talking openly about where you lack is super scary, but it was also important. What I did was leading with vulnerability. So showing my emotions, leaving myself open to easy criticism, left the door open for others to follow and do the same. And so they did. Now, I knew that after doing the talking, it was important for me to listen now, and not just any listening. When people are expressing their innermost feelings, you don't want to be in their way. You don't want to interrupt a sentence they take forever to utter because of the deep feelings it represents, right? So as a coach, you have to be listening on a different wavelength than normal listening. You have to use what some call level 3 listening or global listening.
Tell us a little bit more about that level 3 listening. That sounds interesting.
So level 3 listening, global listening, it means you have to sense the room. You have to look at body language. How are people seated? How are they sitting on the chairs? How are they standing up? How about the eye movement? Are people locking eyes, or are they avoiding eye contact? With experience, you can even notice breathing patterns or increased heart rates, people breaking out in a sweat or things like that. You have to listen very carefully to the exact words. Words have meaning, right? So what are they really saying? Is there a second layer to it? What are they not saying? Do the same people in the room always respond, and are others always silent? The nuances matter a lot in this sort of session. So after I'd done my bit, the young trans lady opened up first. She started talking about not being good enough for the team. So she wrote a lot of tips on her canvas, not a lot of tops. And she was inexperienced, and for every possible skill set you could think of, someone else in the team was doing better than she was. And I didn't say a word. However difficult it was not to console her at that moment, I explicitly didn't want to be the one to start the rescue mission. If I'd done that, the whole team would have known that I would always come to the rescue and that they could safely stay silent. And I didn't want that. I wanted to create space for the team.
Tell me about how you did that, Patrick. That part is real. All of this is really important, but tell me about how you created that space.
So creating space means, besides being able to live with a lot of dead air for a very long time, you leave room for people to think and speak up when they feel the time is right. So you don't want to rush things by asking questions or asking more questions and prying, or doing the talking for them, filling in the blanks. Sometimes you already know what people are going to say or what you want them to say, but try to refrain from that. And as a coach, you walk a very thin line between creating that space to have people talk freely and pushing buttons to have them say a little more than they would have otherwise. So in this case, after a long, long silence and many questioning glances from my side, the other team members finally started to speak up. And one after the other, they all started praising her with such amazing, kind words. All team members told her how she was the social glue that bound the team together. With her kindness, her interest in people's private lives, her silliness, her openness, and here it comes, her heroism. And she looked stunned by the use of that word, heroism. But all team members acknowledged that she was so brave for being her true self and for showing the world what she should really look like, even though that in itself would draw mockery or worse from certain people. And that was the moment that she broke. She cried 1,000 tears, and uh, she told us really, truly horrifying stories of what she'd gone through and worse was still going through on a regular basis, like people beating her up on the street for no other reason than her being herself. I was certainly moved to tears by what she told us, and I was not the only one. The most touching part was where she said our team was her daily safe haven. She felt accepted by us for who she was. And even though she didn't say it, the thing that was missing for her was the respect for what she brought to the team. She hadn't felt it until now. But now that she had learned about the team's respect for her social skills and what that meant personally to the different team members, she started to glow. And I can now safely say that this session had an enormous positive impact on her overall well-being. She was a brighter and happier person after this session. And she was not the only one. I'll give you another example. The team told the refugee from Africa that he didn't have to smile all the time, that it was okay for him to not be okay sometimes. Because that's what he did. When he came in the morning, he smiled. And when he went home at night, he was still smiling. And for once, he turned off his smile and he told us awful stories about what had happened to him in Africa and about his flight from religious fundamentalists there. And he told us that at that point, when he left Africa, he decided to not let anyone spoil his mood ever again, and that he would simply go through life smiling. And the team told him that he wouldn't be giving up on that if he let his true emotions shine through sometimes. It would be okay for him to be sad sometimes. Everybody feels sad sometimes. His work would be appreciated by the team just the same. And you could see a literal sigh of relief from him. That was beautiful. And it showed once again how the other team members were willing to accept him for who he was, baggage and all, and respect him for what he brought to the team. Now, if time permits, yeah, I think I'll give you one more example. And I really want to tell you this story because it aligns so much with the inclusion part of this track. So like I said, there was also a man of around 60 with autism on the team. And I had told the team quite a few times what I expected of a T-shaped DevOps team. And that's why he had written down a lot of tips for himself that had something to do with the way he approached his work. He had, however, also told the team earlier what it was like being autistic. So he got feedback this time from the other team members that really surprised him. They didn't agree with him that he should work on changing his approach but instead they asked him how the rest of the team could help him by dividing the workload in such a way that it would also be okay for him. And now I know that doesn't sound very scrummy. Ideally, you don't want to adapt the work to the people that happen to be on the team. You want to deliver as much value as you possibly can. But in this case, the team were really standing up for their teammate, and they were willing to see how they could help him stay on the team and deliver as much value as possible anyway. They explicitly accepted him for who and what he was and respected him for what he brought to the team, despite the autism. And sometimes, who knows, perhaps because of the autism. Again, as a coach, I didn't even have to say or do that much, except let it happen and give the occasional nudge with an inviting look for someone to speak up. I think if I had intervened more, I would have actually ruined the flow instead of helping it. So in conclusion, I could tell you numerous stories from other team members and also from other teams and other organizations that I've done this session with since. But what all these sessions have had in common was a shared focus on accepting people for who and what they are and respecting what they bring to the team. If I would have started these sessions by trying to build trust, asking them to share personal stories from the start, I don't think I would have accomplished the same results. See, we need to feel accepted and respected before we can trust. And acceptance and respect are the true basis for feeling self-esteem. And like we saw, when you feel self-esteem, your confidence goes up, so does your performance. And when your individual performance goes up, so does a team's performance. So there's no better way to build great teams than by starting with acceptance and respect. Thank you for your attention, and I will now gladly take your questions.
Well, first, I just want to say thank you so much for this great storytelling, Patrick. This was such a great quality of storytelling to your talk. And a couple things that really come up for me is being able to see people and to be seen. And in the stories that you shared, it sounds like the exercises that you brought to the team helped the team members really see each other and really support each other. So thank you so much for that. Excellent. Any questions that anybody has of Patrick about tips or tops or how he did any other facilitation, or just what it was like to be in these scenarios? Any questions that anybody has?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Hi, Patrick. Good to see
Hi.
you. So I can understand how respect is almost the foundation before you start to build trust in a team and have that psychological safety that we always talk about. In your experience, as you've seen, teams through this journey, and you've seen that respect being shared as well as, given to each other, and you can see that and sense that as a coach, when do you feel like teams get to a point where they start to trust each other? So I can see the relationship, but if you're a new team, do you have sort of do you have some signals that you see as a coach that helps you sense that, oh, now I can see the trust being built in this team?
Well, like we saw with the examples that I gave, sometimes it's necessary to have people say these things explicitly. Sometimes it's hard to sense because this team was also a team that was already working together for quite some time, but there were still these underlying issues that they didn't speak of. So they were, whenever they did a retrospective, it was all about the process and it was all about the work, but never these underlying things. So I think it helps a lot if you bring things out in the open and really try to discuss these things. It's hard to sense these things, I think, on the surface.
That makes sense. So as a result of doing this team appreciation activity with the team, was it that everyone started to be more authentic in conversations because now they
Exactly.
could be, okay.
Exactly. And people felt more more at home, being themselves. And like the refugee, he wasn't smiling all the time anymore, and he told us when he felt sad or when he had a message from his home country and that wasn't good or something like that. And the young trans lady told us when she wasn't feeling fine, and she actually took days off when she wasn't really doing very well. Those were things that never surfaced before, but after that session, so it helped a lot in that respect.
That's great. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions?
Hey, Patrick, I've got one. Do you
Mhm.
think that you can build trust if there's no acceptance and no respect amongst the team members?
No, I don't think that you can at least not build it the same way. But then you can build some form of trust, but it will be more work-related and more superficial. And if you actually feel accepted and respected, then it goes much deeper, and then you can trust people with your personal issues, and you can really speak about personal things, which has a completely different feel to it. So it's a different level.
Yeah, that is a big takeaway from this is the depth of the connection of the people, and
Exactly.
that is what talk about such a powerful human connection. I mean, to feel that at work is, I mean, talk about bring your whole self to work. You know, everybody's always
Exactly.
talking about this, oh, bring your whole self to work. Well, you can't bring your whole self to work if you need to feel guarded. And what you just
Exactly.
described to me is people truly bringing their whole self to work. Super
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's also linked to your vulnerability and the authenticity you bring among your team, and maybe that's connect to acceptance and respect to build a kind of confidence. I think it's like the two sides of the same coin.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think the powerful thing of this session, the format of this session, is that it doesn't start with the personal stuff. It starts with work-related items, your strengths and your things you need to work on. Those are all work-related. But then from there, you go towards the more personal stuff, and then, like I said, I was trying to lead with vulnerability. So I opened up also a bit about my feelings about that and about my shortcomings. And that's when you open the door for others to also follow that and try to be more open about their personal feelings as well. Yeah. Good point.
Hey, Patrick, you know, you mentioned building psychological safety, you know, in a session. What would you do personally to create psychological safety for a team? You know, we talk a lot about that, but I'm not sure people really understand how to create that. How would you?
Yeah. I'll always make sure that be sure of who is in the meeting and who's not. So make sure that the people are on the same level. No hierarchy there, no manager there, for instance, in the meeting. And then we try to lead with that also with trying to create safety. Point out if people say something that's maybe goes against the safety, point it out and try to steer it in another way. And yeah, trying to be open about your own vulnerabilities, so that creates a setting of, okay, you can say things here and it will stay within these walls or digital walls, and that's okay. So set an example and make sure that yeah, the people are able to follow that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Anybody?
I didn't have a question, just a comment. I really was enjoyed your stories, Patrick, and especially one of them where you were talking about how a team member wasn't thinking great things about themselves, and they actually got the feedback from the team. I think that's so powerful in building those connections. I had a similar experience when we did a Strength Finders exercise, and one of the team members is very self-deprecating. She always did think great things about herself, even though everybody on the team thought she was amazing.
Yeah.
And she looked at her strengths and she's like, well, I'm not dependable. I'm not, and they're like, what are you talking about? You're the person we reach out to when we need help. So that can be so uplifting for people that don't have that high self-esteem and really boost their confidence. So that really resonated with me. Thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's what I've seen in many of these sessions that I did with many teams now. Indeed, many people think too low of themselves, and other people appreciate them much more than people realize. So that's great about these sessions. Then it comes to the surface, and people really speak up about it, and that's that really helps and really is a confidence booster. Yeah, great.
I have a question.
Yes.
I joined a bit late, so I didn't catch much of it. Hopefully, I can catch up in the evening with the recording. But I think I got the gist of it. My question is this activity something you do when you build the team right up front, and then on an ongoing basis, do you do any activities to kind of reinforce that these aspects into the
Good
team,
question.
especially when with the place I'm working on, the team constantly changes. I know that's not very friendly for.
But ideal.
Yeah, ideal. But that's the situation. The last 1 year, team has changed several times. So if a member joins in between, I'm finding it hard to kind of rebuild the team from there on. So.
Yeah. Well, I can say I will answer both questions. So the first question is, do you do this at the start, and how do you reinforce it? This team was already working with each other for a very long time, so it wasn't. It's not necessarily something to start a team with, but I wouldn't do it the first week or so. But you can do it at any time, I think. But what we did was we did do this every quarter. So not once a year or something, and not every and not every sprint. That would be too much. But every quarter of a year, that will be. We found that to be okay. And I mentioned in the team, this team, there was also an 18-year-old intern, and he was fairly new to the team. So he was just there for a couple of weeks, and still he did participate in the meeting, and he was also open, and people accepted his feedback as well. So that was not a problem. And I've seen in other teams also that even though teams were changing, you can still do it, because you start from the professional level, from the level of the work process and work-related items. That's where you start, and from there you build towards the personal and the open stuff. So it's always safe to start with. Yeah.
Thanks, Patrick.
And can you remind us again, Patrick, what you call this session?
The team appreciation session.
Team appreciation. Got it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that term also, the appreciation, I think that speaks volumes, right? So you appreciate each other. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Another
question.
Any other questions? We're almost at our time here. Just want to make sure we've got some space and some room for anybody else that has another question. Yeah, I like Lakshi's comment about building a culture of appreciation. It really sets the tone for, how it's almost like a working agreement, right? It sets the tone for how, how people will interact together and how they'll lift each other up.
No. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, so Max is asking about resources for setting psychological safety. I might recommend, if you're on the Slack channel, Max, there's a book reference section, which I love. I think that is so great. All the book resources, because I'm a huge fan of that. And so there's some great book resources out there. And so you might find something out there. And as a matter of fact, I'm right after this talk, I'll go put my link to my book resources out there. And I'll think about a couple of those that might be great for psychological safety. And I'll just put a little star next to them for you, Max. Yeah. Yeah.
Patrick, do you have any resources online, blog or anywhere we can, do you have a canvas that you use?
I can put the canvas of this team appreciation session. I'll put it in Slack. You can also look at the participant guide for links to my LinkedIn, Medium, etc. So, yeah.
Well, I'm glad you brought up LinkedIn. So there's a networking channel out on the Slack also, so you can find people's links out there too. And in the guide for the speakers, Lakshmi and Patrick are both speakers. So in the guide for this conference, you can find their LinkedIn, but also go out to the networking channel on Slack, and you can see my LinkedIn as well as other folks' LinkedIn too.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for your participation, your engagement. Patrick, thank you so much for your great storytelling and heartwarming stories to help us really understand that at the end of the day, all of this is about a human connection, and and we can get the most with and from and out of our teams when we really connect with them on a human level. So thank you so much for all of that. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.